Hello, everyone. Welcome to the International Fortepiano Salon on this very snowy afternoon, at least right here in upstate New York, where I'm speaking from. My name is Maria Rose, and we are hosting today our eighth Fortepiano Salon. And it's actually a very special moment because it's exactly 1 year ago that we did number one, our very first salon, and we've done a whole year, and we thought that maybe the pandemic would be over by now, but we're still partially stuck at home and snowed in, a lot of us. So no better time than to watch a salon, and we have a very special program today with some very live music that I think is very different from what we've done before. So we want to thank again the Catskill Mountain Foundation for continuing to fund these salons, and we hope that you enjoy this salon today. And I'm happy to introduce my co-host, Iheng Yang, who will introduce our guests. Hi, Iheng.
Hi, Maria. How are you?
No, fine.
Good. Well, it's snowy also down here. I'm on Roosevelt Island in Manhattan, New York, and I'm Maria's co-host of the International Fortepiano Salon. Maria and I created this series in the deep isolation of the COVID pandemic, and it really was a wonderful thing to see how many connections we made all over the world with people who loved music and fortepiano. And as Maria said, we have a really special program today called Improvising in Historical Styles, Reviving a Lost Practice, and some incredible guests who are really pioneers and trailblazers in improvising in styles of classical, Baroque, Romantic music. This is something that is a relatively new practice for me as a professional forte pianist and a professional music teacher. And it has just rocked my world to learn how to improvise in historical styles. It has changed the way I feel and practice music myself and share it with my students. And all four of the people who are guests today have taught me along the way from their incredible work as teachers and performers in their publications. We have John Mortensen, Gili Loftus, Nicola Canzano, and Julian Jensen. Before we start our jam-packed program of incredible improvisation and discussion, let me welcome you, our audience from all over the world. And I thank you for joining us. As always, we ask you right now to type in the comments box of your YouTube or Facebook live stream your name and where you're viewing from, what country, what state, and what do you do in music. We want to know, we're so curious to know where everyone's tuning in from, and we welcome you and thank you for coming. Additionally, we want to hear from you today, right now during the salon, as we've written in our emails. If you have a classical sounding theme or a tonal theme, I hope I'm saying that correctly, a theme that's like a melody or phrase of music that can be improvised upon by our musicians today, please write it out somehow. Either take a picture of it and put it in the comments box, or just write out the pitches or describe the theme. And it's possible that we'll be able to have our performers improvise on that. So that's a fun interactive part of today's salon. So if you have a theme in mind or devise one in your head, please get in touch through the comments box and we'll try to receive that. So our first guest is Julian Jensen, who was a fellow at our most recent Academy of Forte Piano Performance fellowship workshop in August 2021. And Julian is a master's student at the Mannes School of Music and a wonderful musical thinker and pianist and musician. And I really got to know Julian over these past few months after meeting him at our workshop. I've learned a lot from his own musical journey. And Julian gave a very, very memorable performance of the Brahms Handel variations on an original Broadwood piano at the Piano Performance Museum in Hunter, New York, which you just heard in the opening credits. But we'll hear that again along with some improvisations Julian made on this piece. And I want to give the floor now to Julian. I welcome you, Julian, back to our salon.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's beautiful and snowy here in Highland Park, where I live with my wife, and it's fantastic.
It's great to have you. So, Julian, we're going to hear some improvisations based on your relationship with this special piece of music, the variations on the theme of Handel by Brahms. Please tell us about your process.
Yeah, so I have been doing a lot more hymn improvisation since the pandemic started, in part because, like many people, I got busy with other responsibilities shifting to the virtual work environment, and it left a lot less time to be able to prepare something ahead for church. So as I play at several churches throughout the weekend, and I've realized that the Brahms Handel variations, the aria originally by Handel, has many similarities with basic hymn tunes. It's very tonal, simple in its rhythm, and that makes it an ideal candidate not only for composed variations, but for improvisational reflections, which is what I attempted to do.
Wonderful. And tell us about why you love this piece of music so much, because you play it with such joy and devotion and brilliance. At least when we were privileged enough to hear you give this really memorable performance at our workshop in August. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I think one reason I connect with it so deeply is because it was kind of the way for me to channel a lot of emotions, including those experienced during the pandemic, because Brahms really goes through the whole gamut. There's tenderness and despair and joy and kind of a frantic affect as well. And they're all there, and you can really make something special out of each one. So I worked on it for over a year, just trying to get into that headspace. And I think that's, hopefully it translates.
Wonderful. So we're going to hear two things back to back. Julian, can you tell us what we're about to hear now?
Yeah. So you'll hear the aria, and I think the first variation of that Brahms originally composed. And then right after that, you'll hear 3 or so variations, which I improvised on the spot with various degrees of planning, just in the attempt to try to get into the really tender headspace that some of those later variations occupy. So.
Great. And I believe the first part that we'll hear, the original Brahms aria and part of the first variation, is played on an original Broadwood piano in Hunter, where we hold our workshop. So just so we get to hear it on an original instrument as well. All right. Thank you so much, Julian.
Absolutely.
That was beautiful, Julian. Thank you for those very personal reflections on Brahms. Our next guest is Gili Loftus, who is streaming to us from Montreal. Gili? Hi, Gili. It's wonderful to have you back. Gili is returning to our salon after being a guest last year. And Gili, please tell us about your work with Clara Schumann and improvisation.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, thanks so much for having me back. I had such a great time last time. It was really fun. So it's nice to return.
Good to have you.
Indeed, Clara Schumann has been kind of an anchor point for me. And in the last couple of years, I kind of returned to her over and over again. And this interest in Clara Schumann, the pianist, actually came through my interest in Clara Schumann, the improviser, which of course they are one and the same. There are two video clips that I thought might be of interest to share today. And they require a bit of context, so I'll be brief, but share a bit of background on those. So of particular interest is a collection of notated improvisations of Clara Schumann's. So this is a small collection that she wrote down herself in 1895. And they contain, there are a variety of exercises in there and all kinds of cool things, but there are 11 of these improvisations notated down in the form of short introductory preludes, Vorspiel in German, so introductions. So there are 11 of these in total, and 4 of which are designated for specific Robert Schumann pieces, which is interesting. And the other 7 are generic, let's say, special, generically special. All of them are about a page to 2 pages in length, so in other words, short, sweet, concise, kind of to the point, variety of tonalities, variety of expressive indications, scalar passage work, chordal progressions, harmonic progressions, all kinds of building blocks that she kind of uses throughout in different and versatile and very colorful ways. So that's more or less that collection, kind of briefly. And how she used them, or how, I guess how her improvisational practice throughout her life, more in general. She too was a product of the 19th century and everything that came before it. So in other words, improvised variation sets and fantasias and anything, all these things that were required of a pianist at the time. And she certainly did those in her earlier concerts as a young girl and a young woman. Later on, she started to construct these kind of short, self-contained suites. So she would take 3 or 4 contrasting short works, character pieces, let's say, maybe a Bach prelude and a Mendelssohn song without words, and maybe a Henselt something or other, and a Chopin this or that. And she would improvise an introduction and then these little interludes throughout the set. So it really was kind of, a through composed kind of affair. And on her concert programs, of which we have many, these are listed as one item. So clearly it's one experience, let's say. So that's that. So the first video that I thought would be nice to share is my attempt to kind of reimagine exactly this kind of suite. And it's from a few years back, so in a sense kind of the beginning of my journey with this. And at the time I tried very consciously to remain kind of very true to the sources, in the sense that the 3 pieces that I chose with which to construct this suite are all pieces that were kind of a mainstay of Clara's repertoire, her concert repertoire. She played all of them many times. And I specifically included one of her improvisations in there. It was a purposeful thing. I wanted to show kind of what she was doing. So the little snippet will begin with Clara's own introduction. It's her introduction to the Schlummerlied, a Robert Schumann piece, a lullaby, and then a bit of that lullaby, and then my own meandering onto a Chopin nocturne that ends that suite.
Wonderful.
So that was that. I should say, I mean, I don't work alone. I work with my piano here. This is the one in the video as well. So if anyone is interested, I'm glad actually in that snippet you can see the nameplate, but it might be hard to catch. But this is a Tom and Barbara Wolf Fortepiano. It's a copy of a kind of circa 1820s-ish, let's say, Viennese instrument. There's a bit of a wonderful mishmash. There's a bit of Graf and a bit of Streicher for those kind of want the details. But a whole lot of Wolf, I would say. It's really a Tom and Barbara creation. So that's the piano. There's one other, I think, little piece of the puzzle that I think is kind of meaningful to consider when thinking about this little collection. And for me, it's really become inseparable to, the contents of the collection itself. I mean, in itself, it's extremely interesting. It's a tutorial of sorts. And that's wonderful and very, very important to, and very rich to delve into. But the other part is kind of the context of when and how and why they were written in the first place. So the when is 1895, as I mentioned earlier. Clara Schumann died in 1896, so this was a year before she died. She was 75 years old. So that's the when. The why is her two daughters asked her to. Marie was her eldest daughter, and Eugenia was the youngest. And they both worked very closely with their mother, especially kind of in the latter part of her life. They were teaching assistants. So in Clara's Frankfurt studio, often students might kind of come in and start with either Marie or Eugenia and then pass on to Clara when they were ready. But they asked this of her, and according to Marie, repeatedly, and it took her a while to kind of relent. By Marie's recollection, Clara said it was difficult for her to do and she kind of didn't want to. But ultimately she did and wrote these down. That, I guess, brings us to the how. For me, I really have this image. I imagine Clara sitting at the piano. She's an elderly woman now. She's lived a life, and what a life. I mean, think of, her early years as a prodigy, kind of touring and hustling and playing all the European capitals with the support, motivation of her father. The whole turmoil of, the Schumann chapter. And all her life afterwards. She lived for 40 years after Schumann died. So, that's a long life, and a long life on the stage as well. For example, the Schlummerlied that we just kind of heard a bit of in the video, that was a Christmas gift from Robert to Clara and Marie in 1841, so when Marie was just born. So for Clara to have written down an introduction to this piece in 1895, that's more than 50 years after, when that piece was kind of born, let's say. So there's just something so personal about this request, and then the mother sitting down to write these little moments. And according to the daughters, she improvised daily, all the time, at home, in a private setting and in public, in a concert setting. And for them to have asked, for this particular something, something to remember their mother by, I don't know. But I think for me, it really highlights how improvisation is kind of this heightened form of personal expression that's extremely powerful and very, meaningful. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell. The last little snippet I thought to share was, it's much more recent, so kind of we saw something from the beginning of my journey, let's say, and something a little bit more kind of representative of where I'm at today. And this is a recording that I just made over the summer. Not yet released. This is a sneak peek. Should be released in the next couple of months with a group here in Montreal, Infusion Baroque. And the volume, or the record, it's called Virtuosa. It's dedicated to, or I should say highlights virtuosas, composers, performers of centuries past. So we recorded the Clara Schumann trio, and we included an introduction to that, an improvised intro a la Clara. And that's the next little audio snippet. And the beautiful graphic that you'll see is part of the CD cover, another sneak peek. that's it.
Thank you so much, Gili, for those rich insights on Clara Schumann and her improvisatory life. And I loved how you said that improvisation is really where personal expression comes out for a musician. And thanks for your beautiful videos where we see what's possible now in introducing romantic composed pieces with our own improvisations in the style. And the question is, why don't we do it more? They used to do it all the time. Hummel, Beethoven, Clara, they all improvised in between and before pieces. And so thank you for leading the way with romantic improvisation with your work there. I'd now like to introduce another person really leading the way in a big way, John Mortensen, who for me opened up the world initially to historical style improvisation when I started becoming curious about it and wanted to learn more. John Mortensen leads a wonderful platform online called Improv Planet, where he has wonderful teaching materials and videos and a following all over the world. I have here in my home John's book from 2020, The Pianist's Guide to Historic Improvisation, which is very user-friendly. It takes you through wonderful lessons on how to improvise toccatas and preludes and all sorts of wonderful stylistically plausible pieces of music. I use this all the time in my classes at Juilliard and with my students. So it's such a great honor, John, to have you with us. I just want to put in a plug because I know Oxford University Press, which published this book, is also coming out soon with your book on fugue improvisation. Mm-hmm. So John, please take it away. Welcome to the Salon. Tell us about what you're excited about now with your playing and teaching in the world of music and improv, and then what we'll hear from you first.
Well, I'm excited about the number of people who are really interested in this and the connections that we're making, you and me, for example, and Gili and Nicola and Julian. You know, there's so many people who are interested in this who are finally finding each other. As well as I looked through the comments, folks who are watching today, I recognize a lot of names of people I consider friends, Improv Planet members, fellow musicians. I want to give a shout out in particular to Peter Van Toor, who has done so much important research and provided us with source material. You know, he's in there, he's digging through archives and finding these great manuscripts and helping to explain them so that we can just take them and go to the instrument and get to work. So it's very much a team effort. So Peter, greetings to you and to Improv Planet members and everyone else. Hello. So that's what I'm excited about. Mm-hmm.
And I know you've given many interviews online, for example, on the Nikhil Hogan podcast, which, you know, Nicola Canzano has always also been a guest on, and Peter Van Toor also. Hi, Peter. Peter just gave a wonderful presentation on Partimento to my classes at Juilliard.
Oh, right.
So I wanted to say, just in a quickly, for those of you who of our audience who hasn't met you, what has been your work in historical improvisation?
Yeah, well, I was just a regular pianist, and I had the same conservatory education as everybody else in America, and it's fairly similar to what is done elsewhere in the world. So, your life revolves around repertoire. And two things knocked me off that track. One was I just have always loved jazz. And so a number of years ago, I just took a couple of summers and said, I'm done being a fan. I'm going to be a participant. And I'm going to really try to get my chops to the point where I can play some things in concert. And so I took a couple of summers and studied very intensely and started to make friends with jazz musicians and began to put jazz pieces on classical programs. Maybe one or two Duke Ellington tunes or something pretty modest because, it's not my main thing. In doing so, I started to notice more and more that there's not really that much of a barrier between what you do when you think about jazz and what could be done in classical music, particularly once the chord progression is internalized. So if you're playing changes over, do you know what it means to miss New Orleans or Autumn Leaves or whatever else? Once you know that, you can spin out variations, which is really what jazz soloing is. And I thought, well, how is that different from a chaconne? How is that different from a passacaglia? It's not. And so I remember the first time I tried to do this, I did not tell anyone, but I was playing the Handel chaconne G major HWV 435, which follows its progression very precisely. And I thought, well, no one in the audience will know, and the police won't be there, so no one will shoot me if I just add, what if I just try to improvise a variation in the middle and I don't tell them, and so I don't get in trouble or anything. And it sort of worked, and I felt confident and alive. And so then I would actually tell the audience, I'm going to make up part of this, and you can guess what's from Handel and what's from me, and we'll play a game. And then I thought, okay, from here I can see doing the entire chaconne. So that was really how it started. It was all on the stage. It was all for purposes of live performance and adventure and excitement. And the academic stuff kind of followed later.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've done incredible work since that initial experience and
Thank you.
Just spreading the word. And I'm so grateful that a friend of mine, Peter Sykes at Juilliard, said, hey, check out John Mortensen. And I was like, whoa, I'm a straight arrow, traditionally trained classical pianist. Right. Myself, never thought to improvise. And I really admire the way you have gone to the sources and translated it for merely human musicians like me who are afraid of improvisation. And there's so many wonderful ways you show your students how to get started. And once you devote yourself to it, you can really go as far as you want. And I think you've empowered a lot of people. And
thank you.
Thank you so much. My students get excited. Anyway, I don't want to make you turn red. So instead, tell us what video you've made for us.
Yeah.
First.
Well, I was very happy to receive this kind invitation because I know about the Catskills Foundation and I know about your work as a forte pianist. I listen to your art songs and stuff and I'm a fan. So I was very happy to do it. But I thought, let's make some kind of connection with a historical instrument. So I'm in this room and I have 3 instruments, actually 4, but I'm only going to use 3. I have a harpsichord over here and a modern Steinway, which is a Model C, kind of a dead model. And then this one is an Erard. I'll get as much in the frame as I can. This is an 1876 Erard that we have had some work done on. We found it in wretched condition in a more or less abandoned house in Springfield, Ohio. And we've had a lot of work done on it. And this is, as I said, 1876, but Erard built more or less the same model for decades and decades, really back into the 1840s, as far as I'm aware. We may have viewers here who know a lot more about this than I do, probably do. But anyway, I thought, well, this is very much a Romantic era, instrument. And so I started thinking about Clara, Schumann, and this is a coincidence that Gilly also brought us things from Clara. So I thought, let's do some variations on a theme of Clara. And so I picked sorry for the noise there, I picked the Scherzo Opus 14 in C minor, the little A section, and I thought this is a pretty exciting, romantic, Sturm und Drang kind of thing. So got to work, I think a day or two last week, and put this together and improvised some variations. So that's what we have.
All right. Wow, that was an epic improvisation variations on the theme of Clara Schumann's Scherzo, Opus 21, I believe. Um, Thank you so much to John Mortensen. John, come back on stage. I want to ask you a little bit more, and we'll keep talking. Thank you so much for playing that. It was I was thinking it was like you and Clara are in the room, and we're just hearing you guys have this deep talk about life and and laughing and I loved all the different genres you went through with that theme. John, I'm going to bring now Nicola Canzano onto the stage, and very soon, guys. I know we're getting a little bit over time, but if you can hang on, the best is yet to come because John and Nicola are going to have a little skirmish of some sorts. But first, not a skirmish, a fun conversation. And make us laugh. They're going to play together and talk improv a little bit more. But before that, I want to introduce Nicola Canzano, who's in New York City, like I am, and I've had the great pleasure of meeting him now, and also Nicola viewing many instructional videos on historical improv on your YouTube channel, Parallel Fifths. Is that correct? So yes, welcome, Nicola. If you want to do this yourself, I hope after watching our salon, you want to start improvising and learning if you haven't already started. Nicola Canzano also, like John, has really shared with the world online, especially wonderful teaching videos. So go to Parallel Fifths on YouTube. I highly recommend it. And Nicola Canzano is a recent graduate of the Historical Performance Department at the Juilliard School and is a incredibly talented composer, harpsichordist, organist, historical keyboardist. He has a group called Nuova Practica, and I love, Nicola, in your bio, it says Nuova Practica basically takes the historical performance movement to its inevitable conclusion, which is to play modern compositions in that have been written in the style of earlier music, and you write beautifully in the style of the
Thanks,
book.
Yang. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have fooled me many times thinking I was listening to Jacques de la Guerre or Handel instead of your own improvisations. So please check that work out by Nicola. But welcome, Nicolas, to our salon. We're so honored. And
I'm honored. Honor's mine for sure.
well. At first, I'd love to ask you, put you right on the spot because you are a really veteran improviser. We have had some really great submissions of themes from our audience. Thank you, audience. So you said, "What you're up for doing something?"
Yeah, I'm up for it. We'll see what happens. Maybe this could be famous last words. I'm just flipping through these again now. So here's the thing: is that I'm like live under a rock and know very little about pop culture. So all of these named tunes of TV shows and movies and things like that, I don't. Oh, actually, Pirates of the Caribbean is something that I might remember. I might remember how to do this. Let's see what else we got. Titanic. I don't quite remember how that goes. Let me try this actually with Pirates of the Caribbean, and I know this because when I was growing up, I think I was 14 or so or something like that when the movie came out, and my friends would always ask me to try to play that theme on the piano because it was a very popular tune. So let me see if I can work it out with a prelude, and then I don't know if I see a path to turning it into a fugue. I'll do my best. Let me see if I can switch my camera so that you can see what I'm doing at the keyboard. Can you guys?
Yes.
Right. Sweet. All right. Let's give this a shot.
So,
It's
Pirates of
this
the
one, right?
Caribbean.
That one? I think so. Yeah. probably not the greatest theme for a fugue, but I did my best. What do you think, John? Does that get a passing grade? No,
you had to live in that modal space a little bit, but you nailed it. It was beautiful.
I don't know about nailed it, but thank you. Yeah, they had all these little syncopations in there, like I remember. Yeah. So I kind of thought like French Baroque, or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not sure that French Baroque and pirate ship is a great combination, but who knows?
All right. So is Ying going to tell us what to do, or are we steering the ship now, my friend? Let's see what happens. Oh, here she is.
I don't need to tell you guys what to do. Take it away. The ship is yours. You've pirated it, and you'll. But my idea was, we talked about this yesterday in the rehearsal. John and Nicola, you just talk all things improv, talk shop, and I know you both have themes up your sleeves that you're gonna give to each other and improvise, and maybe have musical dialogues as well.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm always thinking about students and explaining and not leaving people in the dust. So, Nicola, what do you think about this Fenaroli subject?
Can you play it for me really quick? Okay, so it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4 subject. Is what
and
hear that.
What if I were watching and trying to learn? What I would want to know is, when you encounter such a thing, and there it is, what is an improviser thinking? What math are you doing in your head? And I just thought it'd be kind of interesting. You say what you would do, I'll say what I would do. We can both play a little bit. I'm at the piano, but I can go to the harpsichord too. I just feel less stupid when I'm at a piano.
Sure.
Anyway,
let me pull that theme up really quick so
okay.
we can talk about it. But I can still expound what I'm thinking when I first encounter a subject.
Yeah.
And I can even tell you what I thought when I saw the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, which besides Absolute Panic.
Right.
So when I first heard that theme, Fenaroli, that you just played me, I'm thinking this fits into a 1, 2, 3, 4 trope, right? Mm-hmm. So the subject is basically a decorated version of right. So I know that that theme could be answered tonally or really, and I would probably first think about a nice counter subject and where my answer is going to be. Mm-hmm. And next I would try to think of a different counter subject that I might try to introduce as like a B section, and then pretend that I'm a genius and put them back together, when in reality I've just planned it out.
They're predestined to fit.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. I always, first thing I need to know is, how does this function as a melody and how does it function as a bass? And melody, of course, includes upper voice that's an inner voice, because they function the same way, but melody and bass function totally differently. So let's say I start with a bass. So if the bass goes 1, 2, 3, there are all kinds of things you can do over 1, 2, 3. Maybe the simplest one is going to be rule of the octave. This kind of harmonization, which is very, very basic to improvisation, was taught in the Parlamento tradition. So I'm going to do something like that. Let me move this camera a little bit. And then as a melody, what could we do? Well, 1, 2 is great, because you can do this. And so once you have basic accompaniments or harmonizations for it to function as a melody and bass, you're okay. Then major and minor, okay? Because some subjects, when you convert them to the relative, everything gets screwed up. These do not include 6 and 7, so there's no question of the melodic issues, raising and lowering. So as a minor, let's say F sharp minor. No real issue here. Also as a soprano, we could do. So at that point, I'm less frightened.
However, the minor version presents an issue right for the answer, because you could actually go major or minor, could you not?
Yes, you could. There's actually a hidden problem in this, which I think of all people to figure it out, you're the greatest one. If you do it in descending order, you start in the soprano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you go in descending order. You want me to show you my problem, or do you want to find the problem?
Oh, you mean the 6/4 chord that happens immediately?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Maybe explain that to the viewers.
Yeah. So okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me get my camera back here. Sorry, it takes a few button pushes to get the harpsichord.
Sure.
I couldn't quite figure out a better setup. So what John's talking about here is that if I try to answer this from below rather than above. So first, let me just show you what happens when you answer it from above. Or something like that, right? So no real issues, because you have this, and then you can quickly go to E major somehow. And that's what I did. However, if you answer it from below,
right.
This implies a weak harmony, right? So yep. John's saying, this is the problem, is that this implies this chord, which is actually not really allowed in Baroque music except at cadences and on very weak beat passing tones.
Right.
So I can tell you what I would do with this, John. I would actually probably just add a transition to 5.
Right. Yeah.
Etc.
Yeah. So any subject that ends on 1, scale degree 1, on the downbeat where the other one's supposed to come in, is going to create this same problem. So even though it looks really simple and without any problems on the page, it actually does create a problem. And this is just the invertibility issue of fourths and fifths. Other intervals invert just fine. Dissonances invert to dissonance, consonant inverts to consonants. But fourths and fifths, one is a dissonance, one is a consonant. So you always have to watch out for that. And I would do the same thing. I would just add a little fake measure.
Exactly.
And get away from
it. I would add that actually the fact that the subject ends on the 3rd scale degree makes this sort of less of a problem.
This one ends on 1.
Because if a student said this to me, I would be like, okay, you're very clever, fine. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it still kind of works out. But if it ends on 1, then you're stuck with this 4th, which is absolutely never good.
No.
The other solution is to no, actually, you can't really answer it in 4 either. So I think really the thing to do is to create a lick. Yeah, I think we're in a good
it's you could answer it in 4, but it's going to sound so weird.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a head scratcher. So yeah, that that was my starting subject. Why don't you present us with a sub? In fact, I would love to talk about your chromatic one, number 4.
Yes,
this is a very interesting set of problems.
Yeah, this was meant to be mean. So full disclosure, John and I before this, we weren't really sure if you guys were going to give us stuff to play. Maybe people are sheepish. So we sort of just sent each other an hour before. I hear some subjects in case we don't get any fodder to work with, which was absolutely not the case. So thank you guys. But one of the subjects I gave him, for the purposes of being a bit cattivo, is this guy. So this is really problematic for a number of reasons. Not only is it weird, but that's sort of, I think, the least of its problems, because it can be harmonized reasonably. Excuse me. Or something like that. But really the issue here is that it begins on the 3rd scale degree, which is extremely uncommon. And worrisome, and absolutely requires this transition that we were talking about. So,
Right.
Yeah, what else did you see, John?
Well, of course, the chromatic bit, and I think you gave it to me in A minor, but that doesn't matter. Etc. with the tie. The chromatic thing, one instantly has to think about how is that going to serve as a melody in a chromatic scale. There are standard solutions to that, and you took a Neapolitan, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
I also temporarily I did something a little weird. I was playing around with it. And then I did this. Now I can't remember. So if you give it a full kind of chordal harmonization, you can go into C major a little bit with this. Okay, so okay, and then from here, and use the 4/2 to get away from. I don't know. Maybe there's something else besides Neapolitan you can use there. But I found that I just found I could get better voice leading that way. And what we're really talking about here, and I want to mention the Parlamento tradition because that's mostly what I draw on to do this, is any motion in a scale, chromatic, intervals, sequences, any motion of a line is going to suggest standard harmonizations. And when you know all of them, you can see a line and go, aha, here's what that can do. So for example, falling chromatic scale. There are several ways that are standard in the Parlamento tradition of harmonizing a chromatic scale. One of them I like to call the Martini, named after Padre Martini, because he has an entire prelude that does nothing but this. So let's say we're in D minor, and the way that it works is you alternate two types of chords for everything that's going down. A diminished and then a 4/2. So if I start in D minor, I'm going to take a diminished and then a 4/2 and then a diminished and a 4/2 and a diminished and a 4/2 and a diminished and a 4/2. Okay, and so when I see that falling chromatic scale, and I think if that has to be a bass line, maybe I should just use a Martini. Maybe I need a Martini.
I could use a Martini after all.
And then likewise, in the soprano, that doesn't work. So you need a different set of solutions in the soprano, like...
I think with this subject in particular, though, I mean, I think what's particularly pernicious about it, it's funny because if I take out one note, this instantly becomes a bit easier. Right? And then you have all those tricks available to you that you were just expounding for all of us. But because of this intervening A and the resulting tritone, it's very hard to do. And I fully agree with how you harmonize it in the bass. I think it's got to be sort of an F major world. That Neapolitan isn't quite gonna sound right. It's just a little bit. It's a little bit too crunchy. So I agree. Yeah, so I have to do something like that.
Yeah, I loved it. It was fun. It was a fun little challenge this morning after I stopped panicking.
That wasn't intended to put you on the spot. It was intended for exactly what it
absolutely was intended. Could we talk about ties? Let's talk about ties.
You mean like the instruments or the slurs?
The ligatures.
Yeah. Sure.
When you see those in a subject, as someone trained in this way of thinking musically, what immediately comes to your mind?
Well, the specific tie on scale degree 4 means something very clear to me, which is double cadence.
Okay, yeah. I'm thinking about suspensions.
Yeah, 7 chords pretty much, or 9
Yeah.
chords. Yes.
Yeah.
6 5s.
What's interesting, the way I was trained in piano, a tie is, well, keep your finger on it. Okay?
Yes.
Don't let go. And if you play Chopin, one of the things you notice is that many of his ties in melodies have an accent on the attack because he wants to hear the duration of the tone. So we think, hold on to it. But in this other tradition, it's probably going to be a suspension. And if it's in an upper voice, it was most likely going to be either 4/3, but 90% of the time 7/6. If it's in a lower voice, it's going to be a 4/2. And that almost tells you the harmony just by looking at the single line.
Yep, precisely.
So I've got this one by Leclerc, which has some ties in it.
Let's see. It's
Jean Leclerc,
Is
yeah.
this in minor? And this is a good one for tonal answers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree totally. Those
Those
are all 7/6s.
Yeah, I would harmonize it the same way. And then in the bass, sorry, I'm in a different tuning. And so for those who have not really gotten deeply involved in improvisation, what we're talking about is that in individual lines, there are cues that give you answers. In some cases, the ties, if this is in an upper voice, the tie is going to be this type of suspension, so therefore I need these other notes to go with it. If it's in a bass, it's going to match with these, so I know the ingredients. Likewise, the motions of lines tell us all kinds of things. I'm just curious, Nicola, what's your favorite bass motion?
What's my favorite bass?
Yeah, let's talk favorite bass motions.
Do you mean like a single interval, or do you mean like a sequence?
Like a sequential bass motion from the Parlamento tradition.
That's easy, man.
Okay, man, what do you got? Nice. Yes. Yeah.
It's like ascending to heaven or something. I
It really
can't
is.
get enough of that. Yeah.
Yeah, this
How about
is
you?
known. I would have to say the same one. Although this is called Monte Romanesca. Robert Yardigan named some of these, and so some people will call this Monte Romanesca. Some people will call this ascending fifths, and it is a glorious motion. And there's a paper by a guy I know named John Rice. And he talks about how this is reserved for the moments of the sublime
Yes,
in music.
It has to be.
Yeah. So in Mozart, for example, tonic, dominant, tonic, dominant, for the whole exposition. And then you get in the middle of the development, and it's time to see the face of God, and there it is, the Monte Romanesca. And it's everywhere. It's in Monteverdi. It's absolutely everywhere. So
I can say one more thing about this, actually. I was just talking about this with a student right before this today, which is one reason I like this sequence. Two other reasons I like this sequence, other than the fact that it's utterly gorgeous, and I'm glad we both agree, is that if you start playing the Romanesca, which is one of the first things that you learn, you can actually kind of make a left turn into this.
yes.
So you're not committed, if you're going along and you're about to go. You can just do it. The other thing I like about it is that you can actually continue it 2 ways. So there's the version that I played, which I really like because of those gorgeous suspensions at the end. But you can also do something I see a lot more often in classical and romantic music, although Bach does this in his second orchestral suite in minor, which is that you can actually break the pattern after 2 iterations. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
And do what whatever you want.
Yeah.
So it's a versatile sequence for that reason, and it's gorgeous. So it's something I try to keep in my back pocket.
And the teacher in me is dying to explain this to everybody.
Please.
So the way it works is that the bass is rising by fifths. So let's go to C major. And so it's going up by fifths. But of course, we wouldn't really do that, so it's going to be fourths and fifths. Each chord theoretically takes what normies call root position and what fuddy-duddies call chords of the fifth. Ain't I right? Something like that. However, the cool way that they did this, and this was taught to children in the Neapolitan tradition, is that each one is suspended. And it gets even cooler. If you look at the upper voices, what they do.
Yeah, sure, they're in canon, of course.
Absolutely, they're in canon. It's an automatic canon. You have idiot-proof invertible counterpoint. And you can switch them. So the next
in fact,
problem...
all sequences, I would say, are absolutely fertile
Yeah.
grounds for canons.
Yeah, they're absolutely idiot-proof, which I like, being a certified idiot. Sometimes I joke with Improv Planet students about, if you want to decorate this and not just chunk it out, it's actually kind of difficult because with these two voices. So I've played around a little bit with it.
Right, yeah.
So sometimes you can get away with things like that. And then my final favorite thing about this is you start in C. And if you go too far, you'll end up in B because you're rising by fifths. So here's here's the exit. Ready? Okay. And
can I offer an alternative exit?
Okay, all right. What do you got?
I'm not sure if this is actually going to work. I just kind of thought of this as you were playing.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess it sort of works.
Yeah, that one's more taught. I think maybe Fenaroli taught that. I think I've seen that taught in treatises where you get
good.
here and you just do this down a third, up a step, down a third, up a step to get out of it.
Sure.
So this
But
other
I
one
really
that I was doing.
I really like yours.
Well, this is
better.
called Fonte Romanesca, and there's a big paper on it by Vasily Buros from Northwestern University. I don't know if he's the first guy ever to name it and find it in Mozart and stuff, but it's a worthwhile thing to read. And it's in Corelli, it's in Mozart. It's absolutely
absolutely.
It's really delightful.
What I love most about yours is that 9 chord I mentioned earlier, because there's something I find incredibly satisfying about tonicizing something like this and then reintroducing that flat 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first time I really noticed this was in Dittersdorf, of all places. And I sort of went nuts. I copied it out by hand, and I said, what is this? I have to know. It's probably in my notes still somewhere, a whole page of raving about this. Well, how are we doing?
Go ahead, John, sorry.
I just wanted to ask Ying how we're doing and if we're talking too much and what she wants to have happen now.
Hey guys, this is so much fun to hear you talk shop like this. And yeah, I'm a student of all these kinds of practicing sequences and partimenti, and it's helped me to become better at improvising. And this is the nuts and bolts of what John and Nicola do in their teaching and how they've built this vocabulary. So I encourage everyone to do this. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I could hear you guys talk for forever about this stuff and getting to hear you exchange how you do different things. But yesterday we did something super fun in rehearsal where John and Nicola on this online platform were just exchanging phrases, talking back and forth, harpsichord to harpsichord, Ohio to New York City. So why don't we conclude our salon today, and you guys just, go for it, talk, okay, and bring us into the sunset. Sure. Thank you everyone for joining the salon. To all of our guests, Nicola Canzano, John Mortensen, Gili Loftus, Julian Jensen. I want to mention that the Academy of Fortepiano Performance is open to applications for our workshop this June 11th through 19th in Hunter, New York, in the beautiful Catskill Mountains at the Catskill Mountain Foundation. Look on our website, www.academyfortepiano.org, to see how you can apply for our workshop. You get to come and learn about fortepianos and play on early pianos and immerse yourself in that and have lessons with people like me, who is on the faculty, as well as Maria Rose, Audrey Axon, Pierre Gua, Sylvia Berry. But this year, we're so excited to also have John Mortensen come for a day and do a workshop on historical improvisation. So just wanted to let you know about that. But anyway, thank you to our amazing guests. We're so inspired. And John and Nicola, take it away. And,
hey, Nicola, what do you
start, John?
What do you think about the A section of Goldberg, trading some variations?
No, I don't really know the Goldberg
variations.
Okay,
it's just, all it is, think Chopin, it's rule of the octave. Rule of the octave down, rule of the octave up. From one down to 3 to 5 to 1 in a Chopin rhythm.
Why don't you start?
Okay, you'll be outplaying me in 30 seconds from now. You'll be making me look like an idiot. Yeah, totally. Sorry.
and slow.
On you. You got it, man. You got it.
All right. Well, you heard it from John Mortensen, everyone. I didn't mess that up, okay?
Good times, my friend.
This was absolutely a complete blast.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much. So fun to hear you toss the theme back and forth on the harpsichords and talk about how to build improv and fugal improvisation. Man, what a privilege to get this kind of depth of knowledge. And thank you again to Keely and Julian, too, for your romantic style improvisations. This has been such a good party. I hope that we'll do this again. Speaking of again, the next Salon will be on March 19th. Completely different sort of frame of mind, but we're going to have the illustrious forte pianist Bart van Oort and his partner Petra Somlai from Holland performing and talking to us from there. And this is March 19th.
Yes,
So
and
please join us.
it will be at the same time again, of
At
course, at
2 o'clock.
for
Yeah.
us.
So
And it will, as far as I know, it will include a live performance of the Appassionata. So don't miss that one.
yeah, Petra Somlai and Bart van Oort from Holland in the next Salon, March 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can always check out what we're up to on our website, www.academyfortepiano.org. We have many salons, about one every 2 months or so, and they're always online, and you can view them after the stream if you missed it. Check out our old ones too. And so we have some questions from the audience. We won't take too much more time, but here we have, how is there a differentiation between a tie and a suspension? Would someone like to take that question? What's the difference between a tie and a suspension?
I think
Somebody's typing with their microphone on.
Yeah, I was actually writing a message to you.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me.
Sorry.
A tie is simply something that's in a line. It takes two voices to make a suspension. So the tie is just in a single line, and it may be treated as a suspension, and it may not be. But a suspension is a dissonance that is prepared by common tone and resolves by falling. And the study of preparation and resolution of dissonances is foundational for improvisation in this style. It's absolutely it's like an alphabet kind of level of knowing the language. You have to know all your consonants, dissonances, and how to prepare and resolve suspensions.
if I may, I would say that maybe the easiest way to say it is a tie is a notational thing. It's a thing on a page. A suspension is a harmonic construction.
Let's have one more question because you guys were talking about this earlier before the show. Our two other questions that came up are very similar. And in fact, I had my Juilliard pre-college students submit themes and a lot of pop music themes. And Nicola gave a brilliant improv on Pirates of the Caribbean, so it definitely can be done. But some questions we're getting are, can you guys come up with a pentatonic subject or a bluesy subject or a fugue on Schindler's List? And yeah, go ahead and discuss, is that possible with the Baroque style improvisation? Taking pop tunes. And, well, Nicola just did one, but what are the problems involved in?
So I did that one because it was one of the only pop tunes that I actually knew from that list, and I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But also, I modified it slightly, right? Because we have this sort of motion. But in Baroque music we want. So I actually added accidentals to these things. And I considered for a minute just doing like, just to make my life easier. And sort of baroquify things. But if something is rhythmically, the problem with pop music is that the rhythms are fundamentally different. I mean, these are essentially African rhythms that we've borrowed, and have made their way into pop music, and they're, incredible. But it's a language that I don't really speak easily. So we were talking earlier about the Nickelodeon theme. I'm not sure how many of you are old enough to know that, but that thing at the end, that's like a tied 16th note. So that doesn't rhythmically match anything in the Baroque era. So if I'm trying, I can do this, but I can't do, it's rhythmically, I would mess that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my problem. John is a little bit more of a multilinguist than me. I'm sort of monolingual when it comes.
But when you go into a language, you got to be 100% in it. You don't sort of, do a kind of Spanglish. Which it works linguistically, but not musically, I think. One of the problems with pop tunes and pentatonic tunes, folk tunes, is the lack of a leading tone. So I don't have leading tone. I need a leading tone. This motion from 6 to 1 is super awkward as a melody and super awkward as a bass, and it will lead to total failure in a fugue, in my opinion. So, improvising on hymn tunes, which is something we do fairly often, there's a lot of that kind of motion of 5, 6, 1, and it really makes it a problem if you want to do an 18th century style. So that's kind of a barrier right there.
And that was the issue with the Pirates of the Caribbean theme, exactly,
yeah.
Which is why I modified it. Yep.
Yeah. One time at a party, my students wanted "We Will Rock You." They said, "Can you do a fugue on 'We Will Rock You'?" So there are two problems. One is the flat 7th scale degree, and the other is the syncopation. So if you do... Okay, now that's not so bad. You can alter it enough that they still think they're hearing "We Will Rock You," but it's functioning as a 18th century harmony.
Great.
I just saw one more question here. Sorry, Yi, hang on. You're probably
no. It's a good question.
Somebody asked how improvised counterpoint skills are developed, and I think that's a can of worms. That's probably a good note to end on. People seem to, and John, I really want to hear your opinion on this, because this really is a question that I'm guessing both of us still lose sleep over. Maybe just me, but it's for teaching that kind of thing. And a comment that I get a lot from the more musically aware students are, how do you do all that stuff in your inner voices, and how do you constantly have this active tenor and alto and things like that? And I wish I had the greatest answer in the world for that thing, but the best answer I've come up with is really that I've spent a whole lot of time playing it in church, just like Julian, it sounds like. And I had a church job since I was 13. I was forced to improvise on hymns and fill time and things like that. And if you're playing these 4-part textures all the time, you eventually learn sort of the tropes that work. And you eventually come to find that, anytime you have 5-1, or you can do things like simply because they appear constantly in these hymn improvisations. And so I think it's really just a matter of training your fingers. And this is a horrible answer, and I wish John had a better one.
It's not a better one. It's a little bit different. And I was raised by wolves musically, and I didn't have this great Juilliard prep school situation that y'all have. I was born in a Baptist barn, guys. And so I was not marinated in this kind of stuff, and I had to kind of figure it out after my mind was already closed as an adult. And what I found to be the most useful thing is the partimento tradition, where you have each of these motions and you have upper voices that match them. Now, one example of that is the C5 motion, where you know exactly how the bass is going to move, and you know what the upper voices are supposed to be because they move in patterns. And then once you know them really well in every key, by the way, major and minor, every key, adding filling notes, diminutions, is not so difficult. Sorry. Or you can add inner voices and even things like, sorry, just because these motions are now so deeply ingrained that instead of just taking a note, now I can turn it into a whole scale. And it doesn't make you get lost because the structural notes underneath are so firmly in place. So adding little diminutions to things like whatever, it is not really so difficult when you know the structural notes. So I make a distinction between structural and diminutions. And I'm not playing well here. I'm getting tangled up in wires. So I hope that the demonstration's not too terrible. I'm bumping into things, but
good excuse.
Thank you. Well, always have an excuse ready. Improvisers' golden rule. Always have something that you can blame. So that's
really, I meant to do that.
Exactly. So I rely heavily on the Parlamento tradition to create this kind of structure.
You know, there was one more question from the audience that asked, are there different styles of classical improvisation? There are different jazz styles. And I think that kind of gets to the heart of what we do. This is the whole point, in that we try to immerse ourselves in certain historical styles of playing and then recreate them or you are recreating them in your improvisation. So yes, there are definitely different styles, and this is what we're trying to master.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are different rules. There are different treatments of harmonic things. For example, in the Clara Schumann thing, in order to play variations on something like that, I just reduce it. I make a figured bass chart, and then practice until I know that progression. And it doesn't matter what the surface stuff is, chords, scales, whatever. It's just so clear what it is. And doing that, I found an unprepared 4/2. Just the bass leaps to a dissonance, and that just doesn't happen in Baroque music. And it just made me smile, like, aha, there's a real difference between how you would do Alessandro Scarlatti or Durante or Fischer or Leo or Bach or whoever, and the romantic. Like, you can actually circle it with a pen and say, that's a romantic move. And I enjoy finding those nice distinctions and kind of cataloging them.
Sounds like another book waiting to be written.
I don't know.
Yeah, could you cut that out? Like, I'm not going to be able to write a book for 30 years.
Yeah. Always. So I thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your passion and knowledge today on improvisation. And audience, all these people you see here are wonderful resources. Please connect with them however you like and follow their work as I do. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, John, Nicola.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all so much for coming on and
stay warm,
enlivening this salon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a real honor. Thank you so much. I had an absolute blast.
So much fun. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.